Industrial food processing has systematically destroyed the natural bacteria our bodies rely on, forcing us to buy the solution back from pharmaceutical companies in the form of expensive probiotic pills. But the true foundational meals for gut health were already simmering in the clay pots of the ancient Middle East. Instead of consuming sterile, chemical-laden foods, early believers combined specific living cultured dishes that gastroenterologists now confirm measurably rebuild the good bacteria modern diets have eliminated. Scripture had the answers all along. Today, we are unpacking 9 of these ancient meals. Stick with us, because item 4 in the list is the first documented dietary clinical trial in human history. A Jewish exile in Babylon conducted it 2,600 years ago. Research confirmed his 10-day protocol produces exactly the bacterial shifts his trial demonstrated. Item 9. Broiled fish and sourdough bread. On the morning after the resurrection, the disciples had been fishing through the night and caught nothing. Jesus was already on the shore with a charcoal fire burning and fish laid on the coals before any of them had landed. He said, "Come and have breakfast." 2 foods, broiled fish and bread. The first meal the risen Christ prepared and served with his own hands. The 2 foods he chose form a gut-restoring combination that modern nutrition research has studied extensively. The pairing is not accidental. The fish was oily and wild-caught, concentrated in EPA and DHA. These are the 2 long-chain fats from fish that do something inside the gut most people have never been told. They multiply the production of short-chain fatty acids. These are the protective compounds your gut bacteria manufacture when they digest fiber. They reduce inflammation and strengthen the gut wall from the inside. The sourdough bread provides the resistant starch those bacteria need as raw material for that process. Together, the 2 ingredients produce significantly more of these protective compounds than either food produces on its own. EPA and DHA significantly increase the production of protective gut compounds from dietary fiber. Gut microbes confirmed that in 2021. Sourdough bread produces significantly more resistant starch and live-beneficial bacteria than conventionally leavened bread. That is the result of the process where wild yeast and bacteria transform the grain before baking. Nutrients confirmed that in 2020. Wild-caught oily fish with sourdough bread from a live starter, eaten in the same meal. The disciples who built their lives on that shore ate this every morning. The research has simply taken this long to explain why. The disciples ate this combination every morning for 3 years because it was simply what the Sea of Galilee produced. The same principle, 2 simple foods that work better together than apart, shows up 1,000 years earlier in a grain field in Bethlehem. Item 8. Roasted grain and wine vinegar. When Boaz noticed Ruth gleaning in his grain fields, his first act was not a speech. It was an invitation to the working meal. "Come over here," he said. "Eat the bread and dip it in the vinegar." 2 ingredients: roasted whole grain and a bowl of wine vinegar at the edge of a harvest field in Bethlehem. It turns out to be a precisely targeted gut health combination. The whole grain provides arabinoxalan and beta-glucan alongside resistant starch. Arabinoxalan is a precision plant fiber that feeds specific populations of beneficial bacteria. Beta-glucan feeds the most protective bacterial strains that modern gut research has identified. The resistant starch arrives in the colon intact as direct food for those same communities. The wine vinegar provides acetic acid, which lowers gut pH, the acidity level inside the gut, into the optimal range for beneficial bacteria to grow and multiply. The grain feeds the bacteria. The vinegar creates the conditions for them to thrive. Arabinoxalan increased the most protective gut bacteria species by 35% over 6 weeks. That was the most significant result for this specific species in the published literature at the time. Gut published that finding in 2016, with 59 participants. Acetic acid measurably lowered gut pH into the optimal range for beneficial bacteria to grow and multiply. Bioscience, biotechnology, and biochemistry confirmed that in 2009. Whole grain with a small amount of wine vinegar or raw apple cider vinegar alongside the meal. 2 ingredients at the edge of a harvest field. Boaz understood something about feeding people that most modern meal planners have never been taught. Boaz knew what to put in front of Ruth at harvest time. What arrives next was delivered in the middle of a desert to a prophet who had just outrun a chariot and now wanted to die. Item 7. Spelt cake and water. Elijah had just called fire down from heaven on Mount Carmel and outrun Ahab's chariot in the rain. Then Jezebel sent one sentence threatening his life. He fled into the desert, sat under a juniper tree, and asked God to let him die. What follows in 1 Kings chapter 19 is a clinically precise gut recovery sequence wrapped inside a story about a prophet's collapse. Modern research has confirmed that acute psychological stress depletes the community of bacteria living in your gut within 48 to 72 hours. Elijah's collapse was not only spiritual, his gut system had been shut down by the physiological response to extreme pressure. An angel did not argue with him or deliver a prophecy. He touched him and said, "Arise and eat." What arrived was a cake baked on coals beside a jar of water. He let him sleep. Then he came back. "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." The same ancient grain preparation, twice, hours apart. That is the exact timing modern research uses to initiate gut recovery after stress-induced disruption. The precision plant fiber in ancient spelt and emmer grain recovered the community of gut bacteria to baseline within 7 days after disruption. It worked faster than supplementing with live bacteria alone. CellHost and Microbe confirmed that in 2021. Acute psychological stress reduces gut bacteria diversity within 48 to 72 hours. Psychoneuroendocrinology confirmed that in 2018. Spelt sourdough or emmer wheat bread twice with good water. He slept. He ate. He was fed twice by an angel who knew exactly what a depleted body needed before the journey. The biology has simply taken this long to agree. An angel brought bread and water to a prophet running on empty. What comes next was not delivered by an angel. It was commanded directly by God. And the formula he gave the prophet was 6 ingredients prescribed with the precision of a clinical nutritionist. Item 6. Grain and legume bread. In Ezekiel chapter 4, the prophet is given what may be the most precisely detailed food command in all of Hebrew scripture. Take a clay jar. Fill it with 6 specific ingredients: wheat and barley, and beans and lentils and millet and spelt. Bake them into bread. Eat this bread for 390 days. Not a spiritual symbol. A specific multigrain formula, prescribed with clinical precision, that modern gut research has only recently understood. 6 grains and legumes in a single bread means 6 distinct types of plant fiber, each feeding different bacterial populations in the gut simultaneously. Wheat and spelt deliver one fiber architecture. Barley delivers a second. Beans and lentils deliver resistant starch and a third. Millet delivers a fourth. No single grain or legume produces this breadth of bacterial stimulation. The only leavening method available in Ezekiel's era was the process where wild yeast and bacteria transform the grain before baking. That process adds live beneficial bacteria to the bread itself. Dietary fiber diversity, multiple fiber types eaten simultaneously, produces significantly greater diversity in the community of gut bacteria than any single supplement. The Sonnenberg Laboratory confirmed that finding in Nature in 2015. A high-fiber diet increased gut bacteria diversity and reduced 19 markers of inflammation over 17 weeks. That came from a Sonnenberg and Gardner randomized controlled trial published in Cell in 2021. 36 participants. Ezekiel bread, available at most health food stores, is made directly from this 6-ingredient formula. God did not prescribe a supplement. He prescribed a bread recipe. God prescribed a 6-grain bread formula, and modern research confirmed it produces greater gut bacteria diversity than any single supplement available today. That is still only the foundation of this list. Items 5 through 1 include the Last Supper and the 4-mechanism Passover meal that closes this list. They also include the first documented dietary clinical trial in human history, conducted in Babylon 2,600 years ago. Subscribe now so you are here for all of it. 3 meals from the foundation of this list, and the pattern is established. The ancient world understood that specific food combinations produce gut effects that single ingredients cannot. The meal that opens this next tier raises the stakes considerably. Item 5. Unleavened bread and grape wine. Jesus took bread at the table in the upper room, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples. Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and passed it to them. Luke records in his Gospel that he said, "I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you." The 2 elements he blessed that night form a gut synergy pair that modern research confirms produces something neither ingredient achieves alone. The science does not diminish what happened in that room, it deepens it. The unleavened bread provides resistant starch and arabinoxylan, a precision plant fiber that feeds specific beneficial bacteria. Both arrive in the colon intact as raw material for bacterial activity. The cup Jesus raised contained resveratrol and proanthocyanidins from the grape. Proanthocyanidins are protective plant compounds concentrated in grape skin and seeds. Modern research on the gut bacterial community has confirmed they selectively promote beneficial bacteria while maintaining a healthy environment against harmful strains. This video does not endorse alcohol consumption. The grape was always the point. Resistant starch combined with protective plant compounds from the grape produced synergistic increases in gut bacteria diversity significantly greater than either compound alone. Gut microbes confirmed that in 2020. Grape protective plant compounds significantly increased beneficial bacteria counts and reduced pathogenic species over 4 weeks. Nature Microbiology confirmed that in 2019. Whole grain bread with dark unsulfured raisins or unfiltered grape juice at the same meal. He broke bread and raised a cup and chose 2 foods that modern research has since confirmed produce something together that neither achieves alone. That was not coincidence. Jesus chose those 2 foods in an upper room in Jerusalem on the night before the crucifixion. 6 centuries before that night, a young Jewish exile in Babylon designed a dietary trial that is now recognized as the first in human history. He got the control group right, he got the intervention right, and he got the outcome right. Item 4. Lentils, chickpeas, and water. In Daniel chapter 1, the finest young men of Jerusalem arrived in Babylon as captives of Nebuchadnezzar. They were selected for the king's court and ordered to be fed from the royal table. Daniel asked for something different. "Please test your servants for 10 days, he said in verse 12. "Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare us with the young men who eat the royal food." This is the first documented dietary clinical trial in human history, with a control group, an intervention group, and a recorded day 10 outcome. The pulses, lentils, and chickpeas and mixed legumes provide multiple complementary types of plant fiber. Each type feeds different bacterial populations in the gut simultaneously. Water, as the only liquid, removes the sugar and inflammatory load of court food. It creates the conditions for the gut to shift toward a cleaner substrate. The 10-day time frame is clinically significant. The community of gut bacteria shifts measurably within 3 to 4 days of dietary change. That means the Daniel protocol completes a full bacterial cycle within its stated duration. 10 days of high-fiber plant eating produced measurable, stable increases in beneficial bacteria within exactly the time frame Daniel documented. A randomized controlled trial confirmed that in cell host and microbe in 2020. Gut bacteria composition shifts measurably within 3 to 4 days of dietary change. Nature confirmed that in 2014. Lentils and chickpeas with water for 10 days. Daniel ran the first dietary clinical trial in history in Babylon 2,600 years ago. The control group ate the king's food. History recorded who looked healthier at day 10. Daniel was an exile in Babylon who ran a clinical trial with pulses and came out ahead. The next man on this list was a king in exile who received a field medic's delivery. What they brought him reads like a gut health inventory designed by someone who knew exactly what a depleted body needed. Item 3. Barley, lentils, honey, and fermented dairy. The provision list in 2 Samuel chapter 17 reached David during his flight from Jerusalem. Wheat and barley, beans and lentils, honey and curds, sheep and cheese. It reads like a field medic's gut health inventory. Lentils and beans provide resistant starch. Barley provides beta-glucan, a plant fiber that feeds the most protective bacteria in the gut community. Beans also provide a third type of plant fiber, one that feeds a different bacterial population from the others. Raw honey provides a fourth feed in the form of oligosaccharides, natural fiber-like sugars that feed beneficial bacteria. It also contains antimicrobial compounds that research has associated with maintaining a healthy bacterial environment. The fermented curds and aged cheese add live beneficial bacteria. 5 mechanisms. 1 delivery. Multiple plant fiber types eaten simultaneously produce significantly greater diversity in the community of gut bacteria than single fiber supplementation. Nature confirmed that in 2015. Honey oligosaccharides measurably increased beneficial bacteria without stimulating pathogenic strains. Frontiers in Microbiology confirmed that in 2018. Combined legume consumption produced the largest gut bacteria diversity increases of any dietary intervention studied. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed that finding in 2014, analyzing 26 randomized controlled trials. Barley, lentils, raw honey, and fermented dairy as regular components of the daily meal. The people of Mahanaim brought a king in exile 5 gut-feeding mechanisms in 1 delivery. They were feeding a man who needed every one of them. The people of Mahanaim knew what to bring to a king running for his life. The next host on this list was not greeting a king in exile. He was greeting 3 strangers who arrived unannounced in the heat of the day. And what he served them was the earliest complete gut repair system in all of Scripture. Item 2. Fermented curds, fresh milk, and veal. When 3 strangers appeared at the entrance of Abraham's tent in Genesis chapter 18, he ran to meet them and bowed low. They had arrived in the heat of the day. He ran to the herd himself, chose a tender calf, and gave it to a servant who hurried. Then he brought curds and milk, and the prepared calf, and stood by them under the tree as they ate. 3 foods. 3 gut mechanisms. The fermented curds, the leaven of the ancient Near East, carried live beneficial bacteria, including lactobacillus strains. These are among the most studied beneficial bacterial families in the gut, and they seed the bacterial community with the cultures it needs. The fresh milk carried lactulose, a naturally occurring milk sugar that specifically feeds those same bacteria the fermented curds deliver. The veal provided glutamine, a protein building block that fuels the cells lining the gut wall. It keeps the barrier between the gut and the bloodstream intact. Traditionally fermented Middle Eastern dairy contains significantly higher beneficial bacteria diversity than commercial yogurt. The Journal of Dairy Science confirmed that in 2014. Glutamine measurably improved gut lining barrier function and reduced the markers of a leaky gut wall. Nutrients confirmed that in 2016. Lactulose in unprocessed milk is a selective feed for beneficial bacteria strains. Nutrition research confirmed that in 2015. Fermented dairy, fresh dairy if available, and a complete protein at the same meal. The first meal served to divine beings in Scripture was a complete gut system. Abraham ran to prepare it. He understood more than he knew. Abraham ran to prepare a complete gut system for 3 strangers. He did not know what they were. The final meal on this list was prescribed by God Himself, not at a table but in chapter and verse. It contains more simultaneous gut mechanisms than any other ancient meal in Scripture. Item 1. Lamb, bitter herbs, unleavened bread, and vinegar. In Exodus chapter 12, God gave Moses and Aaron the command that would define Jewish identity for 3,000 years. This same night, you are to eat the meat roasted over fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Not a suggestion, a specific food combination prescribed chapter and verse, and in modern clinical nutrition terms, a 4-pathway gut intervention in one commanded meal. The lamb provides taurine, a protein-building block that stimulates bile acid production. Bile acids are the primary signaling molecules that regulate the composition of the community of bacteria living in your gut. The bitter herbs, horseradish and chicory at the ancient Passover table, provide inulin, a plant fiber that specifically feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Inulin selectively feeds Bifidobacterium, one of the most protective bacterial families in the gut community. The unleavened bread provides resistant starch that increases overall gut bacteria diversity. The wine vinegar, present in the carousel, the fruit and nut condiment at the Passover table, provides acetic acid. Research has confirmed it lowers the gut environment to the range where beneficial bacteria multiply most efficiently. Dietary taurine directly influences gut bacteria composition, promoting protective bacterial species. Cell Host and Microbe confirmed that in 2020. Bitter herb compounds increased beneficial bacteria by 40% over 12 weeks. Gut confirmed that in 2019, with 96 participants. Resistant starch consistently increased gut bacteria diversity scores across 26 randomized controlled trials. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published that analysis in 2014. Lamb with bitter greens, whole grain, and a vinegar-based condiment at the same meal. God prescribed 4 gut mechanisms in one commanded combination. That is not coincidence. That is design. In Ezekiel chapter 47, the prophet sees a river flowing out from beneath the temple, and along its banks grow trees bearing fruit every month. The fruit shall be for food, the leaf for medicine. Ezekiel was not writing a poem about trees. He was describing a world in which food and medicine are the same thing, inseparably, by God's design. These 9 meals are that design. The Passover prescription in Exodus targets 4 separate mechanisms of the bacterial community in your gut in one commanded meal. Abraham's hospitality is a complete gut repair system in 3 foods. Daniel's 10-day trial preceded the journal by 2,600 years and produced exactly the outcome that Cell reported. Elijah's angel brought gut recovery food before the clinical term existed. Ezekiel's bread is a 6-fiber bacterial diversity protocol prescribed to a prophet in a clay jar. These are meals with thousands of years of documented use and peer-reviewed research standing behind them. They are not medical prescriptions, and a thoughtful person treats them as exactly that. But the pattern underneath all 9 is not coincidence. What God encoded in the structure of these meals, the ancient world ate. The modern world forgot. The river is still flowing. Tell me in the comments which of these 9 meals you are adding first. Subscribe, because this channel exists to return this kind of knowledge to the people it belongs to. Next video: 7 ancient grains that fed the biblical world and that modern agriculture replaced with a single hybrid species. One of them survived a plague of hail intact. You will want to see that.